All right, welcome to our MicroMasters live event. I'm Alexis Bateman. For those of you guys know me, I'm the course lead for SC3x, and for those of you that are joining us for other courses, I lead the SC3x Supply Chain Dynamics. And today we have a really exciting special guest, Benny Andrade, the Senior Logistics Manager for Dr. Bronner's, one of my absolute favorite companies. And I'm going to give a little more lead in to Benny in just a minute, but we'll do some really quick course updates, and then we're going to jump into our interview with Benny because that's the best part of the session. So for those that you are taking SC3x right now, remember that the final exam opens tomorrow. So you need to be able, it's open for 1 week, and make sure you allot 4 hours to take it. It should only take you about 2 hours, but make sure you have a good amount of time so you can spend the right amount of time. And remember, it covers the course content for the entire course. It'll more of a focus on the latter half of the course, the last 4 weeks that you just went through, the modules on exogenous factors and global supply chains, but it can potentially also cover content for the entire course. So just make sure to do that, and then also make sure to wrap up your graded assignment for week 10, and also the open response assignment for exogenous factors. So those will all be due tomorrow at the same time that the final exam is opening. All right, so today we have a really cool session. We have, like I said, Benny Andrade, the Senior Logistics Manager for Dr. Bronner's. Benny and I have known each other for almost 7 years now. He came out to our executive education course here at MIT Center for Transportation and Logistics, and I was reminded at the awesomeness of a company called Dr. Bronner's, which sells highly sustainable soaps. And then he was coming out to get a little more experience and get some, or he already had plenty of experience, but get some of our executive training education. So he's been at Dr. Bronner's for almost 8 years. He has a master's in business administration with an emphasis on supply chain and logistics. And he has a wealth of experience and has really grown quite considerably with the company. And so we're just really excited to talk with him, not only as a logistics and supply chain expert, but also for a very unique company, Dr. Bronner's, which is a very mission-driven company that focuses on trying to sell the most sustainable products that they can and operate in the most sustainable way. So today we'll get to talk a little bit about what they do, and I just want to welcome you, Benny. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Alexis. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm very excited, and hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be guest speaker in this amazing course. And as Alexis mentioned, we've known each other for a few years now, and anything related to logistics, supply chain, and the Dr. Bronner's world, it's always of interest of both of us.
Yes, yeah. So I've been coming back to Benny for many questions over the years for Dr. Bronner's and all the things that they do. So I think that Benny has some slides as well that we can introduce Dr. Bronner's. Are those ready? Yes, they are. Okay, so I'll let you kind of, so Benny's just going to introduce Dr. Bronner's really briefly, and then for the entire session, so he'll introduce Dr. Bronner's just so you guys get a good idea. Also on that link I sent out about this event, there is a really cool video about soap making and at Dr. Bronner's manufacturing plant. So if you didn't get a chance to watch it, I would definitely recommend watching. It's really cool to see how their plant works, their new plant in Vista, California, and then he'll introduce the company. We're going to then talk about 20 minutes about some questions that I have for Benny, and then we'll open it up for questions. So remember, and we'll also be running some polls. So if you're on Slido, make sure to be inserting those questions right away. I'll release them as people submit their questions, and then if you like a question, make sure to upvote it. And so the ones that get upvoted the most are the ones that I'll ask Benny, because we won't have time for all the questions, but we hope to get as many as possible. So make sure to be inserting those questions, and then also answering the polls once I release them. So Benny, let me, if you want to tell a little bit about Dr. Bronner's.
Sure. Thank you, Alexis. So Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps was founded by Dr. Bronner, Emmanuel Bronner, who was a third-generation master soap maker here in America. However, he was a Jewish German migrant. He came to the United States in 1929. And this was a little bit before the whole, Hitler thing was happening in Germany. And he came for reasons that was just not getting along with his father, who was a master soap makers in the old guild system, right? His father as well. So it was his third generation. He came to America to be a soap maker, right? He started working in consulting for the soap industry here in the United States, in the state of Wisconsin. And then in the 1930s, we all know what happened in Germany, then the occupation of the Nazi Party, who seized all the goods and the facilities from Dr. Bronner's family. And before he tried to persuade his father to migrate to America, he wasn't successful. Unfortunately, his parents perished in the Holocaust, and the last words that he got in the letter from his father said, "You were right." So Dr. Bronner was very devastated about this, and he started to pretty much preach around the country of his philosophy in uniting mankind, that he found similarities in the major religions of the world, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, that we're all one, we're all created equal. So he started preaching about this, and he traveled across the country. He found his call in Southern California. He felt right at home. He started making soap in his tenement apartment and living pretty much wherever he could. He started making this presentations, and people will come in. And at the end of the presentation, or during the presentation, Dr. Bronner will give away a little bottle of soap. So he soon figured out that people will come in for the soap and not stay for the message. So he thought, how can I engage people with the message? And he came up with this label that you probably have seen at stores, right? With about 3,000 words now. And he, put his message there. And then when he ran out of space, he created another scent. So the first scent was peppermint, and then lavender, and then so on and so forth. So every label that we have has different messages. So this was during the 1940s. But back in the day, Dr. Bronner was behind the times, where everything came out of labs, and chemistry was the spear of revolution and technology. But during the 1960s and 1970s, the counterculture, the quote-unquote hippie generation, really embraced this soap, that it was natural, it was, it was kind of revolutionized, right? So now, 2-3 decades later, Dr. Bronner was ahead of the time. So everybody embraced this, and the name Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps came from an article in the 1970s from Esquire magazine. So Dr. Bronner moved his operation from Los Angeles to North County, San Diego, in Escondido, exactly. He will just welcome people, right? And he put his home phone number in the bottles, and people will just call and spend, a couple of hours talking to him. Moving forward, 1980s, the company was in a little bit of trouble with the IRS. Dr. Bronner founded the company as a non-profit religious organization. Obviously, the IRS did not like that, and he was fined for a sustainable amount of money. So this is when the fourth generation took over. Jim Bronner, his son, and also Ralph Bronner was involved more of a PR speaker for the company. So Jim Bronner brought the company into financial health. Dr. Bronner was still involved. By the way, in late 60s, early 70s, Dr. Bronner became legally blind, unfortunately, because of shock treatment that he had during the 1930s and 40s when he was confined in a mental institution. So he ran the company before the 80s with no sales force, no marketing, no PR, and he was completely blind. Right? So he relied with his employees, and a lot of people, will try to scam him, but he really relied on people that he trusted and that really cared for him as well. So 1980s, 1990s, Jim Bronner, his wife, Trudy Bronner, who's currently the CFO of the company, took over, really changed the whole structure of the company in how to treat employees and how to really make them feel as part of a family. 1997, fortunately, Dr. Bronner passed of Alzheimer's. And just a year later, Jim Bronner, his son, passed as well. And at 24 years old, David Bronner, his son, the 5th generation of soap makers, takes over the company with no experience, obviously, in the business world. However, he was very engaged in trying to use this company as a vehicle to send his grandfather's message and his father's caring for employees and caring for the environment as well. So this was 1998. In the year 2000, his brother Mike Bronner joins the company as well as part of the sales and to pretty much build up a sales department in the company. This is the same year that the company decided to become 100% organic. So it was a period of transition with the company. In the year 2005, the company decided to go Fairtrade. And this is probably one of our staples and our most important and proudest moments of the company, where we really make sure that we take care of our suppliers and throughout our supply chain, right? So this is where I think I went through the different stages and eras of the company. Dr. Bronner, how he founded the company. It took off in the 1970s, then transitioned to the 2nd generation here in America, and then the 3rd generation. And now the 2000s have been a decade or a couple of decades of growth within the company. I joined the company in 2011. I was the first external hire of Dr. Bronner's, meaning that before myself, everybody was promoted from within. And pretty much I came in to develop the logistics department. And nowadays, we are a $128 million company. When I joined, was about $48, $50 million company, and suffering from throughout the years, a lot of challenges. However, we've came along, and here we are. That's kind of like the summary of what Dr. Bronner has been throughout the decades.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. Thanks for Benny and giving a little bit of background on the company. I think that'll be helpful as we kind of go through some questions and spur some discussion here. So we got a little bit about your background of who you are. And, I guess one of the questions to start with was, how did you come into this role, and sort of what were your hesitations in this role, joining a company that was, like you said, your first external hire, a small kind of growing company? If you could tell a little bit about those early days with Dr. Bronner's.
Right. Thank you. So I came to this company knowing nothing about Dr. Bronner's or who was Dr. Bronner's or what was the product. I got the call, like many of us do. Hey, we got your resume and we want to talk if you're interested in a position in logistics. So my background is in logistics and transportation. And again, like many of us, their first opportunity shapes a lot of the times who we're going to become throughout the years. And my first opportunity in logistics and transportation was just right after college, working for a trucking company, a binational trucking company at the border. So Vista, California, where Dr. Bronner's is located, is in North County, San Diego. We're about 40 miles north of the Mexican border. So when I started working in the trucking and logistics industry was right at the border, Otay Mesa, California, very close to the Mexican border. I'm a border kid. I'm a product of NAFTA. I was born here in San Diego, but was raised in both sides of the border. I started my education in Mexico, but also transferred to here to college. So I was always back and forth with this interaction between two cultures, two political, two educational systems, and where for me it was completely natural, right? So I was always exposed to this international perspective, if you want to say that, right? Us border kids are pretty much wired to think both in English and in Spanish, translate pesos and dollars, kilometers and miles, Celsius and Fahrenheit. So we have this perspective, and that I think helped me to dive in this logistics, transportation, international trade industry back in the early 2000s. I started my master's degree in business administration with an emphasis in supply chain as well, because I was already working in the logistics industry. After I left the trucking company that I was working for, I moved to a third-party logistics company, a broker. So now I thought I had the experience in managing or offering the trucking service. Then I was brokering and selling the service, and that gave me a different perspective within the logistics industry. And after almost 2 years working with this company, I got a call from Dr. Bronner's. I came on board, again, knowing nothing about Dr. Bronner, so who they were. I walked in with my experience in logistics, and this is what the company was looking for, right? They were trying to, at the time, and still, professionalize areas and where the problem that many companies like our company had is managing growth, right? So they saw that challenge, and that not promote or promoting from within will take us just to a certain level in where we needed professionals from the outside or external professionals that will bring expertise, that will bring their tool set, and to try to grow the company from within, and to better professionalize the company. So that's how pretty much I came on board with the company, and it's been since 2011.
Right. No, and that's awesome to hear about, and also sort of your cross-border experience. And so many of our learners here are from around the world and have dual country experiences, and kind of work across different borders. So I think they appreciate that insight. And so we have over 130 countries represented in this course. So we got a lot of that perspective. So for those of you guys on Slido, I just dropped in a poll. Where do you work in the supply chain? So just to get a kind of quick insight on where you're working. So if you could drop in your poll there, and we'll discuss those poll results in a minute. So Benny, you introduced a little bit about Dr. Bronner's work on sustainability, and I was wondering if you could give a little bit further insight on how you feel like how the supply chain has been impacted by that kind of perspective and mission-driven element of Dr. Bronner's.
Right. So I see that you guys can see that slide with concentric circles, right? 1 through 6, and I'm not gonna call them all in order, but one of them is take care of our suppliers, right? Be fair to our suppliers, and this is how it all came through. Dr. Bronner's has a very complex supply chain. If you can see behind me, I have a little map here. It looks like almost like a CSI episode with strings attached, right? And that's our inbound supply chain. So Dr. Bronner's uses raw materials from across the world, mostly raw materials that you can find in the Northern Hemisphere, or at least in North America. Coconut oil, palm oil. We'll discuss a little bit more about that. Peppermint oil, and jojoba oil, so on and so forth. So what we started to do is source these raw materials where we can find them directly with the suppliers, meaning directly with the farmers. So we wanted to cut that middleman. We wanted to cut that broker in where they were only motivated by profits. And we wanted for the suppliers directly to take most of their profits and really impacted their communities. So what we think is that when you cut that element, and when you provide fair wages and fair prices for their raw materials, is when you're going to see this trickle down to their families, their communities, and will all come back, right? So 80% of our raw materials are sourced from abroad. We're talking about all these raw materials that I've spoken before, but also we do source locally, mostly packaging materials, in some raw materials as well. However, we found that when we decided to go organic, and when we decided to go fair trade, we couldn't find any raw materials available out there, right? Organic back in the year 2000 or the early decade of the 2000 was still, developing, right? There was no legal frame Companies would say that it's natural or organic, and they will, put like a tea bag size of organic lavender and dip it in water, and they will claim to be organic lavender water. So we found that those discrepancies throughout the supply chain, and people that were deceiving suppliers, people that were deceiving customers. So we thought, let's build something for us. Let's take care of ourselves. So in 2004, during or after the tsunami that hit the South Pacific, specifically the island of Sri Lanka, we came on board there with a guy named Gerlazon, who is our VP of Special Operations, and I'll dive into that a little bit later. He created a nonprofit organization called First Aid. And what happens most of the time with natural disasters is where you have the media for 1 or 2 weeks covering everything, and people, diving in and donating money and donating clothes and water. But after 2 weeks, the media leaves, and the people are left behind with, yes, a bunch of clothes, a bunch of water, a bunch of food. But what the people want is go back to work, go back to their lives. And we wanted to help them do that. If you were a fisherman, well, let's help them out to, rebuild their boats. If you were, working in a coconut oil factory, well, let's help them to rebuild that coconut oil factory. And that's what we did. We found this coconut oil mill and that needed some upgrades, and we thought, okay, let's help the community get them back on their feet. And we saw an opportunity. We thought, well, we're already sourcing coconut oil from around the world, from brokers, but how about if we start developing our own supply chain of organic and fair trade coconut oil? So this is how it all started, with our first organic certified coconut oil project in Sri Lanka. This was back in 2004 and 2005. Now 2019, Sri Lanka, and the company name is Paul, is the #1 company in the world certified organic and fair trade of virgin coconut oil. So that was a great achievement from the Bronner family that really believe and invested in the communities, in the people, and directly with the farmers that are pretty much producing the raw materials that we're using. So we replicated this model of fair trade and vertically integrated supply chain with other projects around the world. Palm oil, in particular, in Ghana. So palm oil, I know it's a big topic. You guys, Alexis, you've led the efforts in trying to find out what's going on around the supply chain of palm oil, right? So Dr. Bronner decided that we didn't want to be associated with the negative aspects of the palm oil situation. So we developed this project in Ghana where there's no rainforest, there are no orangutans that are being harmed during the harvest. There are no orangutans in Ghana, and we make sure that we're sourcing directly from small stake farmers. We don't source directly from plantations or from brokers or anything. We make sure and make the farmers and the whole supply chain accountable of every single pound of palm fruit. Then what we own is the mill that produces and extracts the oil from the palm fruit. And this is a project in the town of Asum, about 200 kilometers from the port of Tema in Ghana. And this project is really a vivid and live area where multicultural, multi-religion communities work together. Mostly women that work and that we employ them, and also it's a great source of income from them as well. So we take care of our farmers, we take care of our employees, and they're part of the Dr. Bronner's family. So this project, again, it was replicated in India for peppermint, also more coconut oil in Samoa, because Paul became only for food grade, jarred and bottled food grade. We have 3 different SKUs as well. So the cosmetic oil that we're sourcing now comes from Samoa. And what the difference is, the food grade, it's the same coconut oil. It's just the age of the coconuts. One, we decide that in less than 30 days about that goes into food grade production, and after that goes into cosmetic production. Every single product in our product line, we use coconut oil. Mm-hmm. Not only that we develop our own supply chain or vertically integrated, but we partnered and we've helped other partners to develop their own projects. We source olive oil from Palestine. We don't own that project. We don't own any, mills or factories in Palestine, but we help them finance their project. We purchase 100% of the harvest up front to get them started. And nowadays, this company, you can find their products all across the country, really, all across the world. So we also source from Jewish farmers about 15% of the olive oil, and we send them to refining process in the Netherlands. And what we do is we mix the oils, we refine them, and we use them in every single product. So we don't think that we don't get involved in any political or religious aspect of it. We respect every walks of life. But what we think is that when you really impact the economies and the local economies, is when you're going to make a change, is when you're going to see a difference in the communities. So we mix the soil and we say, hey, we can get along.
Right. Oh, that's really exciting. And if in case any of you guys are interested, I know that Dr. Bronner also has some cool videos about about the palm oil and also about the coconut, their sister company. So I'll share that along with this video in case you want to see it in real live action. So it's really exciting to hear about that. So just as a real quick recap of our poll, about 5% are in manufacturing, 5% raw materials, 9% manufacturing. Great thing, 23% logistics, so they align with your interests, Benny, and 23% end-to-end, and 22% other. I suppose I should have had what is the other? So thanks for filling that out. I'm going to, we're kind of talking about with Benny on how they've already taken the responsibility and working with their suppliers to ensure sustainable practice. So our next, they've kind of taken that next step. Our next poll will be, do you think firms should be held responsible for the actions of their suppliers? So Dr. Barnes has almost kind of just jumped ahead and, help them ensure that they have sustainable practices. So the next question. So we've talked a little bit about your vertical integration projects and how you kind of ensured that sustainable supply in some cases, especially in areas like palm oil where there's so many risks and so many challenges. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more generally about some of the biggest challenges that you've encountered in managing this sustainability in the supply chain. Obviously, the visibility issue, and you've circumvented by some of that by vertically integrating. So, in kind of other areas, what are some of the big lessons learned you've had in this space?
Right. So I mentioned before my colleague Garo Lizon. He's our VP of Special Operations, and the name Special Operations sounds like this dark ops situation, right? And actually it is. Now, the thing is, Garo Lizon leads this group pretty much around the world. He's based out of Berkeley, California, very close from where you are, Alexis. And Garo leads this group from people that live in London and here, Southern California, Germany, to pretty much cover all across where our projects located at, right? So what they do is that when we find an opportunity of developing or partnering with a project that can allocate the capacity and the volumes that we need for a certain raw material, Special Ops goes directly to the source, goes to the communities, talks to the people, engages with the farmers, develops relationships with the people that will be impacting the day-to-day operations, right? This is how it happened with coconut oil. This is how it happened with palm oil and with a lot of the raw materials that we're currently sourcing, right? So they pretty much developed the project from scratch. from if we are developing let's say a mill in Ghana, so how are we going to partner with the local authorities, right? How are we going to partner with the local chiefs? So think about that we're doing business in third world countries or in countries where, you experience more challenges, right? You experience sometimes challenges of infrastructure, political systems, or some political turmoil as well. Some practices that sometimes are not quite, up to standards, and that we have to, respect that. We don't engage in that, but nevertheless, it's something that it is present, right? So the challenges are always, I will say, infrastructure, business style, communication as well. My job line is pretty much 24 hours, right? Because when I leave here, the company, Sri Lanka is just starting today, or Ghana is midday already, or Palestine are sending our documents for an olive oil shipment. So taking care of that and tracking that, it's part of not only the special operations team, but also here in our Southern California headquarters. In terms of the accountability, in terms of complying with all the requirements that we need, first of all, to be organic. That's the first hurdle for Dr. Bronner's. It has to be organic. When we bring aboard a new supplier, a new vendor, that's a first hurdle. Is it organic or not? If it's not, let's move on. Let's go to the next one. If it's organic, are you fair trade? And we understand that there are challenges in becoming fair trade. And we've have helped partners to become fair trade. We tell directly our suppliers, if you become fair trade, we are willing to source more from you, even though it will cost more to us, because we see and we're committed to this advantage that we see in that people need to be treated fairly. Right? So the challenges are still there. It's not like we've, solved all the problems in the sustainable world. There still are a lot of challenges. So one of the challenges also that we are facing again, and this is together with the accountability, it's that we get certified by third parties. Right? We don't certify ourselves because obviously that's not, legal first, and that's not reliable. So we bring third parties, IMO, Fair for Life, that will tell us you comply with the standards of a fair trade organization. You comply according to the OTGO system, that you are 100% organic. And what they do is that every year we have an organic inspection and also a fair trade certification and inspection. And those are two different entities, right? So they will come here to our company and they will grab a bottle of soap from our inventory shelves, and they will say, okay, this is lot number ABC123. Give me all the paperwork and the tracking of this bottle and how you made it. So we have to bring, spec sheets. We have to bring all the raw materials that we use, the lot number, the certificate of analysis, the certifications of organic of the companies that we sourced them from. So every single paper trail of what it took to make this bottle. So accountability is very important in our supply chain. We take pride, again, that we know our suppliers, and that's a challenge. So you think about any single product that we use a day. And again, we're responsible of what we buy, and we want to do as much as we can to help the world. And I know the limitations as a consumer that we have, but we vote with our dollars, right? So we take pride to say, we know the farmers that source our coconut oil. We know the farmers that are, harvesting the olives that will become our olive oil that will be in every single product that we use. So I don't think that many companies can say that. I mean, again, think about what do you use? Your laptop, your food, or anything. If you ask their the managers or the CEO, do you know where the product is coming from? Do you know where the raw materials are coming from? Most of the times they don't, because companies are profit driven, and I get it. We are a for business company. We are a for profit company, and we understand that, and we understand the complexities of it. But that's a challenge, right? Sure. What type of company you want to be, and what type of company you want to leave to the next generations, and how do you want to be identified with your consumers as well.
Right. No, this is great. So I'm actually I have so many more questions because I love talking to you, Benny, but our students they have some great questions. So I'm actually just going to cut the rest of my questions and jump right to theirs, because then they get to talk almost directly with you. Well, just as a quick sum up, the poll results, I'm really happy to see this. Obviously, a certain people joined our live event here, but says, do you think your firm should be held responsible for the actions of their suppliers? 50% said yes. 5%, only 5% said no. 5% I'm not sure, and 41% it depends. So I think that's some good and interesting results there. So we're going to jump to the questions, and so I'll just we have some upvoted questions here, so I'll pick them. One coming from our esteemed CTA Chris Cutali. Has pursuing sustainability and social responsibility caused a reduction in profit, or has it enhanced it instead as middlemen are eliminated?
We don't see it that way, that it's a reduction in profit, to be honest with you. We think about the positive impact that we have in the communities and the environment, because that's embedded in our DNA. If you go back to all this, the 6 pillars of our company, treat employees like family, be part of your community, be fair to your suppliers, treat Mother Earth like home, give, and educate yourself. So it's really embedded in our philosophy and in our mission statement, right? So it's not something that if you buy a bottle of soap from Dr. Bronner's, we're going to donate $1 to X, Y, and Z organization, and they're going to make, some goodness in the world. No. When you buy a bottle of soap from Dr. Bronner's, you're just making sure that we do all this goodness all over again, and it goes, full circle. When you buy a bottle of soap from us or any of the Dr. Bronner's product, you are already contributing to the sustainability of, a community in Sri Lanka, a community in Ghana, that we're making sure that, orangutans are not being devastated in the natural habitat, that every single, element from a coconut is used. Coconut are called in Sri Lanka the fruit of life, or the tree of life, because you use every single element of it. So we extract the oil to use in our products, but also the water is used and sold locally. The shells are used as fuel in the heaters that provide energy for the company in Sri Lanka. The husk also are being used as compost as well. The cookies that when you bake the meat of the coconut, it becomes this almost like a cookie. We also sell that product locally. You grind it and you make coconut flour. So it's a full circle, and the same with the palm fruit, right? So I think that our company really is committed to this 6 pillars that are embedded again in our mission statement, and saving the world is in our mission statement. And I know it's it's a broad one, but we're trying to do the best we can every single day.
Great. No, that's awesome, and very motivating, I think, for many of the students that are here that want to hear companies like yourself that we don't get to hear from very much.
Mhm.
So I also just released a poll for you guys on just saying, in your work, just where do you see some of the biggest environmental and social impacts? So if you just pop in a phrase or a short word, we can review that in a little bit, just see in your kind of own experience. So the next question is coming from Mario, and it was upvoted quite a bit. It says, can you describe a bit about your relationship in terms of logistics with marketing and planning and production department and kind of your relationship and how it's helped with the external challenge that you're facing?
Right. So we see ourselves as a well-oiled engine, right? We need to work together, all departments from sales, production, marketing, PR, and what we're doing sometimes in ops. It's not the sexy jobs, right, out there. I mean, if you know our company, if you follow us on social media, you'll think, well, everybody's having so much fun in this company. You were filming at festivals and we're doing all this awesome things. And that's true. But what happens in the background? It's like I always think about like a play, a theater play, right? You see the actors perform and your mind and your brain is engaged and all your feelings are, out there. But what happened behind to make that play possible are the unknown heroes sometimes, or the unknown professionals. But what it takes to make soap, it's the same for us here in operations, right? Marketing will be the face, and PR will be the voice for the company. But in order to make a bottle of soap, as I mentioned before, all of this had to happen before. All the complexity of our supply chain. Internally, we see ourselves as an internal supplier, an internal provider for production, for marketing, for PR. I'm always asking the other head of departments, what do you need from logistics? What do you need from shipping? What do you need from receiving? And this is an ongoing and never-ending, education process and learning process and collaboration process. Because I always say as well to colleagues and my students where I teach logistics and transportation, the only guarantee in logistics is that there is no guarantee. Right? And there's 1,001 things that could go wrong. It is our job to minimize that and to have at the end a happy customer or a happy consumer. We're not a trucking company. We're not a logistics company. We are a support of the organization to make at the end a customer happy to have a bottle of soap in their hands.
Right. Great. Thanks so much. So the next question, actually, I think also is coming from Mario, but also a good one. He's asking, what are the trade-offs of not using traders in terms of your vertically integrated projects and others?
Right. So we try to eliminate, brokers and traders as much as we can, especially with the raw materials. Right. We go directly to the source. There are some areas in where it is more difficult for us to leverage the volumes that we want and the cost that we need. For example, bottles. We source bottles from the same manufacturer that produces bottles for Coca-Cola, right? Mm-hmm. So Dr. Bronner's, even though we're growing and we're here and these guys are like way over here, right, in terms of the volume. So we have to go through brokers in terms of helping us to leverage the amount of volumes that we can purchase from this type of manufacturers. Note aside, the plastic bottles that we use are post-consumer plastic. Right? Mm-hmm. So it costs a little bit more. We have to commit to buy a little bit more, even though we're not using as much as we are sourcing. Right? Mm-hmm. So inventory is obviously, like in any other manufacturing plant, a problem, a concern, especially again because of the volumes that we're sourcing in packaging material and sometimes in raw materials. Raw materials, what we need to do is to use almost immediately all of our raw materials because they're organic. We don't have any preservatives in it, right? And they have a shelf life. So we have to produce almost immediately and have a finished product on the shelf or at the at our warehouse that we have to turn around as much as possible, as fast as we can. So what are the trade-offs? I will say, we are committed to doing as much as sourcing directly, and this happens to our raw materials, our ingredients. But we understand that it's not possible. Again, it's like when we started sourcing organic, and we found that there were not that many organic companies around the world. And when we wanted to source fair trade, same thing, right? So, and we communicate this, right? We understand that the consumer is expecting Dr. Bronner's to do 100%, almost perfect in the supply chain, and it's not perfect. It has its complexity and has its challenges as well.
Great. No, it's really interesting to think about some of the different challenges that you're faced by not working with traders and having organic materials. So the next question is coming from Christian, and he's asking, in terms of the Serendipalm, do you have excess production of organic palm oil, and do they sell to other companies or competitors?
So yes, we are going to. Let me rephrase that. We know our capacity. We know our volume, and we haven't hit that yet. However, we don't want to produce more than that, because this company exists to source Dr. Bronner's, and we can only produce as much as bar soap we can, because palm oil goes into our bar soap. So we do have other customers that we source or that we supply to them in Europe, and they're great partners that they use this product in food products. And in Europe, they make spreads, they make cookies, and they're very also concerned and aligned to our environmental concerns, environmental philosophy and mission, and they're very also a mission-driven company. However, again, the volumes are going to hit, the ceiling in maybe a couple of years more, and we are not intending to, produce more or find other sources, because we have this constraint. So we do sell to other customers, but it's Dr. Bronner's or Serendipalm exists in order to not devastate the environment. Precisely. If we find ourselves that we do need, we're probably going to rethink the strategy, but never to just eat the local market or cannibalize the local market as well. Right.
Great. Thanks for that. So we have a couple more questions. We have. You touched on it a little bit in terms of the third-party certifiers, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about it. Pavi asks, when sourcing from so many different countries, how is Dr. Bronner's ensuring ongoing quality and compliance?
Right. So again, this department that we have, the Special Operations Department, are the ones that are at the site. They are the boots on the ground. Right? They're the ones who are training, certifying and making sure that everything goes according to compliance. So we bring the third-party certifiers, both organic and both fair trade, and they guide us and teach them and train them in what they have to do in order to, continually supply us the products that we need with the standards that we need. So once they train the local team, they're the ones responsible to going every day and every single day to the fair trade certified farmers and making sure that all their practices are within compliance. We have auditors as well in Sri Lanka, because there are situations in where some farmers are tempted to do some practices that they're not in compliance. So they're constantly checking, they're riding their motorcycles and verifying that the trucks from the farm really make it to Serendipalm's facility in Sri Lanka, or in the case of Ghana, or in the case of Samoa, and that every single coconut that they put in the truck are from a Fairtrade certified farm. So it is a challenge. It is an ongoing challenge for both the local teams and also our special operations teams. Again, we have people in London and Southern California, in Germany, that pretty much cover the globe in terms of where our vertically integrated programs are. So the guy from London covers India most of the times. The guys from Germany, Ghana, and Sri Lanka. The guy from Southern California goes to South America and Samoa as well. So it's from South America, we source PKO, palm kernel oil, from a very mission-driven company as well, Natural Habitats, and they're good partners in our supply chain. But nevertheless, even though we source from another company, we make sure that they are complying with all our standards and with our certifiers as well.
Right. Great. Thanks for that. That's great to get some of the deep insight there. So just as sort of a wrap up for our poll, we had some people put in some answers. So where do you see some of the biggest environmental and social impact? We had logistics, fair trade, suppliers, wastewater, waste, disposal, process efficiency. Some are being impacted by ROHS spills. Some said ranching. Then the next one said middle-class jobs in the Midwest. So I'm not sure about that one. And sourcing. So some good insights there. So we usually can't make it out of a live event with someone asking about blockchain. So do you have any thoughts on blockchain for Dr. Bronner's or your materials, or have you guys thought about that at all?
Yes, of course. I mean, everybody's talking about it, right? But I think that there are certain technologies that we are already using, they're already applying, that they have so much potential, right? RDFI tracking, also our EDI capacities, I think, in having a more connectivity and strengthen our relationship with our customers and our suppliers. Again, Alexis, we're talking about companies or countries where electricity is a problem, where they have probably electricity in villages only a couple 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. So we face those challenges before thinking, obviously to the next step. And the next step is really having a robust, interactional interface with our current technologies that we have. Again, EDI, our ERP systems, and where I think that we can extend and collaborate with our current vendors and our customers as well before taking the next step on the blockchain. So definitely is in the conversation, and not only, pretty much is the topic in the supply chain industry and also in the company, but how can we do this before we really take advantage of what we currently have? Right.
No, absolutely. No, good advice there. So I just have, I have a couple of questions remaining, but I think sorry for those that we're not going to get to these last few. I just wanted to have a couple, wrap up questions just so our learners can kind of get the last bit of your sage advice. So what are major future issues that you see emerging as related to sustainability and supply chain? And how do you think students can prepare themselves for these emerging issues?
Right. So one of the issues, or probably challenges, that we're having in the whole natural and organic space is with a new certification called regenerative agriculture. And what regen is, it's trying to combine different crops, native crops, with the current crops that we're already sourcing, like palm oil, like coconut oil, in order to sequester carbon and not to really send it out there and really have a negative impact. So if you guys Google or search regenerative agriculture, this is something that Dr. Bronner and also other companies like Patagonia are engaging, along with the Rodell Institute, that we're trying to take sustainability to the next step, right? If we are already sourcing palm oil and we can produce cocoa and we can produce vanilla within multi-crop system, and this is how agriculture has been done for thousands of years, right? It's not only maybe 100 years ago, where you had single crops and you pretty much devastated the whole environment to produce one crop. But when you interact with multiple crops, and this is where we really are pushing forward and to sequester the carbon footprint that we're leaving, right? So the challenges is also that, or the challenge is that, and we're really pushing hard and with partner with companies like the ones that I already mentioned. I think we're going to be successful. And the next couple of years or so, you're going to see more companies coming together with this idea and this mission that we can make it happen, and we can collaborate in a way that it will be beneficial to our consumers and will be beneficial to our environment as well.
Great. No, that's awesome. And for those of you guys, like you said, looking into regenerative agriculture, I would be a good kind of interesting thing to look into, because it is a growing area right now. So we're coming back down on our last minute. And before we sign off, I do want to say first, I'll ask you one final question is thank you, Benny, for joining us. It was really insightful. And I know that we had multiple comments that were, inserted as questions, just saying thanks for your insight and thanks for the really cool learnings. And also for you guys, or who are in SC3x, don't forget to sign up for SC4x, the next course, Technology and Systems, so you can continue your journey in the MicroMasters credential. So kind of the final question, Benny, is do you have any final advice for our supply chain learners as they continue their professional careers?
Wow. Thank you, Alexis, again for the invite. And I always say, keep on learning. Really, I think everybody who's in this program is because of that, because you're interested in these topics. You are either your employer is sponsoring you, or you have a particular interest in the topics of supply chain, logistics, international trade, sustainability, or whatever. Right? This is an ongoing process, and this is always something that it interests me, and I want to relay that to everybody that I have contact with, no matter if you're in the marketing space or in the PR space or the logistics industry, there's always something going. There's always something changing. So I guess find that call. You already have a passion for this topics. Your reason you're here, and keep on doing it, really, because you will always find companies that are looking for people that are professionals in the area, but also people that have a mission-driven mentality. And there are companies out there. Again, as a consumer, you can vote with your dollars. You can purchase companies and Spartan companies like ours, companies that are trying to do good to the world. And also, you can employ yourself with companies that are trying to do good things for the communities and for the environment as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Benny. That was great advice. It was inspiring to hear about your journey in the company, and then also Dr. Bronner's on the whole. We really, really appreciate your time. And thanks to all the learners that joined today. It seems that you guys enjoyed it, and glad to have you here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Thank you very much, everybody.